Shadow Show.
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 Shadowing it.
Breathe in. Breathe out. Tua in. Skylar Thompson out. Playoffs in. Mock drafts in October out.
Christopher, I need you to tell your father how you feel about this.
He gave me this pain.
I need you to tell him. I need you to look.
I don't want to look at him.
I need you to look in his face, please. And Greg, I need you to be receptive here, and please be warm and open. I need you to tell him how you feel.
My heart hurts.
Okay, that's a start. But why?
He gave me this pain when I was born, and it never goes away. Sometimes I think, we've turned a corner, and I'm going to start to feel good, and then it goes away, and I cry again.
Greg, are you sorry? Please look at him.
I'm not looking.
It is true that
Please look at each other when we do this. Please don't look away from each other. Look at each other's eyes.
it is true that when you were an infant, your mom and I put an aqua and orange foam football in your crib. But you know what?
No. Stop. Let me stop you. Not but. Okay. Not but.
Okay.
I want you to be receptive here to your son and to hear him why it is that he's so angry about this.
I just don't know how one thing can only generate one thing, and that's pain.
Well put.
It's the only thing it generates. I think it's going to generate something good, and then it just generates that thing I said before.
We know what the thing is.
Pain.
Generates.
That
we
kind
get
of
it.
thing is what you mean.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls better tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. We take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough, but man's keep walking. Yeah, just too sharp with the prize. White girls, better tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
I am so mad at them. Not Chris and Greg for acting poorly. I am mad at the Dolphins for making me watch a game last night that was between an 0-3 team that allowed 9 sacks last week. That's the Titans. Mm-hmm. And a team that hasn't had a lead all season. They forced me to watch a game. The Dolphins forced me to watch a game in which a 15-6 lead we all knew was insurmountable. As soon as Tennessee got to 15-6, we knew that game was over. And I'm guessing the rest of you, Billy, how mad are you? Chris, how mad are you? Cody, or how mad are you? Because now the flames rise on Mike McDaniel doesn't know anything. That got here quick. Like Mike McDaniel needed Tua, and nothing works in Genius unless you've got Tua. And so everybody, because the hope was so high, because we dared to hope for the first time in 25 years just because they gave us offense, and now it's Tyreek Hill for 2 catches for 3 yards in the first half.
I mean, but it's deeper than that too, right? Because, yeah, sure, they lost Christian Wilkins because they couldn't pay everyone, but the defense was supposed to be okay, right? And then Mason Rudolph comes in and carves you up. Mason Rudolph does. Like, what's going on with this team right now?
I don't feel good about the way I looked at Mason Rudolph last night. Like, when he came in and moved down the field for a couple field goals, I was like, look at this guy.
You were jealous.
He looks good.
Yeah.
I was attracted to Mason Rudolph last night.
Of course.
I at the same time that was happening to you, I was taking inventory of my entire life because I'm on the couch and I actually hear the words come from my television. Mason Rudolph, if I'm Callahan, wait a minute, what do we have here? Well, what you have there is Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
And a league that kills all its quarterbacks, so the backups are all playing by week 4.
But he's a good backup. I mean, you want
But
to
he's not. He's not a good backup. He's a good backup in comparison to who the people that have been backing up for the Dolphins for whatever reason.
Well, that's what I was saying, Billy. In comparison to what the Dolphins have, he is a good backup. You would love to have him right now.
I don't know that he'd look any better. I really don't know that he'd look any better.
No, they didn't win because of Mason Rudolph. They won because the Dolphins were being the Dolphins. I was an eyewitness, an unwilling eyewitness at that game last night, and it was one of the most dreadful performances I've ever seen. A quarter into the season.
You deserved it. I mean, an eyewitness like you witnessed a crime.
His job,
I did witness a crime.
He did, yeah.
Look,
It was.
a quarter of the way into this Dolphin season, the MVP is 38-year-old Calais Campbell. That's how bad things are going for the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill is not being allowed to be Tyreek Hill. They don't have a quarterback who can throw. And the problem is, which I alluded to in my column, is that they've been terrible on offense for 8 games now, dating back to last season. Tua's played in 5.5 of those 8 games. The offensive drop-off precedes this season, and it's really disturbing. And as you say, Mike McDaniel, the heat is on him all of a sudden, fairly or not, and he's got to find answers because you can't keep using the quarterback as an excuse. Okay, we've seen backup quarterbacks come in and do very well.
It wasn't just the quarterback last night. The punter before the half gives away 3 points. Waddle drops the ball. They couldn't block anybody. The Dolphins, think about this for a second. They played football so poorly last night that twice during that game, and one of these plays was positive, the Dolphins had the football between their knees, clutched together between their knees, how poorly they played, stumbling around all over the field.
What's going on with Waddle? Is he not good? I thought he was good. I was pretty certain he was good, and then he doesn't look good for a very long time. Last night was kind of like, when you try like hell to open up a jar, and for whatever reason you just can't do it, and then you hand it to a friend, and it's the easiest thing in the world to them. It pops right off, and you're wondering, like, I must have loosened that up for you. That was kind of like watching Titans-Dolphins at the same time that Seahawks-Lions was going on.
They should not have had those games going on at the same time. Greg, you're there. Is it fair to question the effort of the Dolphins? Because it seems like they don't care.
Oh, That's what it always looks like when you're failing, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't question the effort. I would question the execution. I would question the mindset in the sense that this team has had about 10 illegal formation penalties in the last 3 games. Just that one penalty, which is pretty inexcusable. It means you're not getting set quick enough.
They had it on back-to-back plays yesterday when they were driving.
They had 3 in one series. I mean, it's just sloppy. And that's, to me, that gets back to that's coaching. When you keep having dumb penalties and you keep repeating them. And McDaniel said after the game that things will happen, that there's going to be changes because there have to be.
But what does that mean?
I don't know what that
That means changes are coming, Dan.
No, but
Yeah.
they already changed from one
Buckle
quarterback
up.
to the other.
Right.
I have 3 totally independent observations. Number one, I think it's pretty clear and obvious, and it was a little confusing when it happened. They should have never cut Mike White. It's just you brought in Mike White as an insurance policy for Tua. You got cocky because you had one relatively healthy Tua season, and he would have been a massive upgrade over what they have right now.
Arguable.
Number 2, fair enough. Number 2, this is an offense that was running off of pristine timing, and they're having pre-snap penalties, and their timing looks off. Number 3, their timing looks off because they're getting blown up at the point of attack.
They look so small yesterday.
They look so small. They are getting physically dominated in a physical sport. They look not tough at all. They are the definition, the personification of a finesse team right now.
It sounds like an exaggeration, but it reminded me when I was in college and FIU went up to play against UF. And you're like, these are just 2 completely different size teams. Like, they weren't, and these are the Titans. Like the Titans looked so much bigger than the Dolphins. yesterday.
Titans by definition should appear bigger than Dolphins.
In the Dolphins' defense, though, everyone looks small next to
Not bigger than
Devondre
Giants.
Sweat.
The Giants, right?
This Sweat guy for the Titans is one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen.
Again, we're going to do this after seeing the 0-3 Titans of Mason Rudolph drag the Dolphins. We're going to do.
What are we supposed to do?
They're
Jason
so big.
Sanders is back on track. Who cares? He shouldn't be on the team.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying
Odd
that.
day for it.
He's their entire offense.
He's their MVP this year.
I'm not saying that you have to be positive. I'm saying lamenting that an offensive line that blocked well, but an offensive line for the Titans that allowed 9 sacks last week, allowed plenty of pressure last night. They're an 0-3 team for a reason. The criticism I'm stopping on is Billy saying they don't care. They don't care that they're
I said they look like they don't care.
It did seem like they checked out towards the end of that game. They were just frustrated. Tariq Hill is yelling behind Mike McDaniel.
I would understand if you're getting beaten by Mason Rudolph and Tony Pollard. All of us are noticing at the same time, sort of like, wow, Tony Pollard still runs really hard.
Yeah.
There was like $500 million in contracts not playing for the Miami Dolphins week 4 in a game they absolutely had to have. Wow, the Dolphins found a way again. Everyone in the division loses, and they blow it on a primetime game. But no Tua, no Chubb, no Armstead, no Fuller, no Long Jr., no Mostert, which I think that's a lot of touchdown production that is not in your lineup. And you could say what you will about Odell Beckham Jr. I'm not sure he helps what's really ailing the Miami Dolphins right now, which is a whole bunch of stuff that starts as soon as that ball gets snapped.
They also lost 2 offensive line starters in free agency, and that's really hurt them. Their running game, which was second in the league last season, has been nothing. Achane, speed runner, averaging well under 4 yards per carry. But I don't blame a lack of effort. I don't think they quit. Keep in mind their only touchdown drive was very late in the game, which is a touchdown drive despite them having 3 illegal formation penalties in that one game. In fairness, Huntley was in metaphorical handcuffs. I have to be careful after what happened to Tyreek Hill a few weeks ago. Huntley was handcuffed by the fact that he plainly was unfamiliar and uncomfortable with that offense. And for that reason, unless he learns it quick in a short week, I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to Skylar Thompson at New England if his ribs are healthy.
I don't want to do this because maybe they win.
They're reeling, Dan.
Well, it's not just that they're reeling. It's Mike Ryan keeps doing the right now, right? He keeps saying this is how they look right now. And even in that league where the Bucs lose to the Broncos that way and then look totally different the next week. Even in that league where the Raiders look one way against the Ravens and then the next week they lose at home.
Classic Raiders.
I don't believe that anyone should have any reason to hope for anything going forward. Like, I would be willing to say that all of what's happening here.
You're just speaking generally?
That's worse than what we're saying.
I agree.
His hope is all gone. Forget
November's
it.
forever?
It's
I mean,
over.
Next month is November.
But in all seriousness, like a concerning thing that's going to happen as a result of all of this is Tua's probably going to get rushed back, right? Because like they don't have any answers at the quarterback position at the moment. And you're already starting to see little tidbits here and there, little breadcrumbs that, Tua talked to the neurologist, everything's okay. Maybe he comes back sooner than expected. And it feels like they're going to rush him back.
One thing I heard this morning from the other room as Dolphin fans are panicking, trade Tyreek. Max value, just reset.
Back to Kansas City.
Because once you pay Tua, like the whole thing you
they
can't
need him,
afford.
Mike.
Now that you've paid Tua, you kind of are going to need to clear some space. I mean, look, it's a low point right now, as I mentioned earlier, generating a lot of pain.
It's over.
And trading Tyreek is not like, I was just like, when they said it to me, I was like, all right.
My point is that because of what Mike said about injury and because of how they look when Tua's not in there, but also how they looked when Tua was in there against Buffalo, it's over. Like, it's not maybe they win next week or they come within 4 points of the Patriots because the Patriots are also terrible even though they won at the Bengals. But without Tua, what I witnessed last night at home, losing to that team with its backup quarterback, cannot win football games in this league under any circumstances. Changes, schemes, trying harder. There are no circumstances. And I don't think Tua in there is one of the circumstances because that offensive line isn't going to be able to hold up for him, as you saw against Buffalo.
Billy just said they checked out, they gave up, whatever you want to call it. You're saying it's over. Like, you're going straight to sex here,
You
man.
hit him with that. Everything is over.
They're going to
Right.
New England. Like, watch them put up 30 this week.
Penicillin.
I am saying that everything is over without assassinating the character of violent men who play that sport for a living by calling them quitters who don't care. That's the objection I
You
had
said
to
they're
what.
terrible at their jobs. Which one's worse?
No, they're lost.
Right.
They lost and they're injured. They've got a bunch of contracts that are out. Yours is worse.
I think they're capable. I think that they are just in a headspace right now where it's like,
they're not
we're
capable.
not gonna win.
How are they capable, Billy?
Because they're capable when they have a different quarterback in there. They're capable when they're
Billy,
healthy.
the last time we saw that quarterback in there, he's trying to kill himself to get them 10 points. Like, what are you talking about? At the top of the division, there are the Bills, and then there is a team that cannot play with the Bills, as we've seen through the last 3 games.
Yeah, but you can't say the offense isn't better without Tua. Like, when Tua's there, it's one of the best offensive teams in the NFL.
but
It's
Tyreek-
off when he's out.
Tyreek also
Not for the last 8 games.
Right.
Not like, please don't ignore that the last 8 games, they've been bad. As soon as Armstead gets hurt, everything goes to shit.
All right, but a
big
lot of
sample
teams
size.
and a lot of quarterbacks would have been bad in 40 below weather in Kansas City. I mean, they would have been. I understand what you're saying, but it's a better offense with Tua.
Tyreek also
Yeah,
very
of
clearly
course.
had knee surgery that he told us about on a cop cam and that they're pretending was not knee surgery. That was just a quote-unquote procedure, and he hasn't looked the same since said unreported knee surgery.
The Dolphins have a macro problem with the quarterback situation, and that is Tua's career ends with his next concussion. Okay, I think that's a pretty safe bet. And so even when he comes back, whether it's in 2 games or 4 games, at least 2, he's not a safe quarterback. You know, he's one play away from probably ending his career. So how long do you have Tua when he's back? How much longer does he stay healthy? That's a huge issue shadowing the team.
As we're searching for blame here, I've just been handed a note from the other room. I'm just going to read it here. The Dolphins have lost their franchise quarterback, have 1 touchdown in 12 quarters, and are 0-3 since Dan put on that Dolphins hat. Wow. So, I don't know what we want to do with that.
Wow.
Lucy believes in that sort of stuff. Lucy believes in jinxes and hauntings and superstitions.
Yeah, I feel like we all have to do it. But my thing with you guys is, like, you're just straight up haunted forever. So I don't necessarily know if it's anything you did. I just don't understand. Like, shouldn't you guys be used to this by now? No offense.
What I said about the generating pain thing.
Well, this is the thing that's happening right now that is so interesting about what I've seen on social media, which is a fan base that is absolutely turned on its coach. That wouldn't have happened if he hadn't inflated hope by getting all of that offense. And the Dolphin fan dared to hope that this was different than it would be the last 25 years. And what I'm telling you is that what I witnessed last night from that football team cannot win a game in this league. That performance cannot win a game against. When you lose to that Titans team that way with its backup quarterback, that guy, Mason Rudolph's not any good when he plays, and he hasn't had any reason to play. Him coming out there and doing that to an expensive Dolphin defense as Jalen Phillips is spending the game, limping off of the field because they're giving the bodies to this particular cause, that right there is worse than the Carolina Panthers look with Andy Dalton. That looks like the Carolina Panthers looked the first couple of games of the season when Bryce Young is their undersized quarterback. That can't win in this sport. There's not a quarterback you're going to go get that you're going to be able to put in this timing offense and make it something different than it was last night.
And man, do these Mike McDaniel press conferences hit different at 1-3.
That was my main takeaway.
When we were 6-1, I'm like, oh, this is the smartest human being that's ever coached football.
It all hits different.
Now
right?
he's just meandering.
Yes.
He doesn't end a sentence.
He looks sad.
Finish
Yeah.
one sentence,
He
dude.
can't finish a sentence. I was watching the post-game press conference, and it's a different person.
Yeah, it is. And that personality plays when you're winning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mike McDaniel, youngish, quirky, fun.
Yeah.
That plays when you're winning. When you're losing, it's like, come on, nerd, figure something out.
Yeah, get a haircut, buddy.
Right.
Every other coach seems to be doing all right with these backups. Joe Flacco's winning in Indy.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Matt
that's an
LaFleur
upgrade.
is winning with Willis.
You
That's a
can't
fair
be
point.
one of these offensive guys and call yourself a quarterback whisperer when Shanahan's doing it with Jimmy G and then he's doing it with Brock Purdy and Tomlin's doing it with Fields and Russell Wilson.
Yep.
You can't do it. If your offense is good, your offense is good. regardless of the quarterback. His offense is only good with one quarterback, apparently.
Yeah, but not for the last 5.5 games.
I got it. Yeah.
Makes you wonder if he had a cheat sheet this whole time. Wasn't actually a genius.
If you heard him on South Beach Sessions, his lack of focus was obvious. He can meander a great deal, and I can't imagine what it feels like at this moment to be him when you're looking at the field and you know you don't have any answers. Like, you know, you've been told for a while now here over the last 2 years that even if your team loses, you've been told by everybody involved because your offensive identity guy, oh, well, you're good at your job. We know you're good at your job. We didn't believe Tua was that good, and he led the league in passing. Now you're staring at the field, and you're like, am I good at this job? Because I have no answers. There's nothing on a play sheet. There's nothing in preparation. I have no answers for Mason Rudolph. I have no answer for the 0-3 Titans. Like, that will crush anyone's confidence. Seriously, it takes 2 games in that sport. Now you get out in front of people. When he did the halftime interview, I was listening to him wondering, how do you even talk right now when they ask you about Huntley? Like, what fake words do you have to go find so you don't insult what Huntley is doing out there? Like, how do you stand in front of people and figure out what the lies are going to be so you can just say focus and other stuff and not talk about, well, Huntley's my quarterback. That's my problem.
It's not that difficult, then.
How
Just standing up,
How would you have
staring
done
into
it?
a camera
How
and
would
just
you have done
lying,
it? Let's.
right?
How would you have done it? Let's make it you.
It's a weird messenger for this.
Let's do a little fake interview. Coach,
Stugotz on how
go.
easy it is to speak.
I'm Coach McDaniel.
we're here with Coach McDaniel. Coach,
Okay.
how are you going to handle a rough first half? How are you going to bounce back in the second half with Huntley?
You know what? It's on me. I got to put them in better positions to succeed. It's not on the quarterback. It's on the coaching. We'll get better. We'll be better in the second half. I have to make adjustments.
Okay.
All right. Now the second half comes and goes, and everything that you said at halftime was bullshit. Clear to everybody.
In fact, that's the follow-up. In the postgame, now the question is, Coach, everything you said at halftime was bullshit. Can you tell us how Huntley played?
More reps, more practice reps, more reps with the first team. Perhaps I'll look at an upgraded quarterback. Probably not,
Whoa,
though.
you just lost the locker room.
You just lost him.
But this all starts with me.
They're
It is
lost.
on me.
But
I
you
did
didn't
not-
know it started with the quarterback.
Look at him. He was so comfortable and confident with his lying that he's like, I got this. And now all of a sudden Huntley is
He
insulted.
threw the team under the bus and then says, it
Listen,
starts with me.
This is what you do. It
Lying
starts,
needs to come naturally. I can't force it. I mean, come on.
what you do is this starts with me. It was all Tyler Huntley's fault, and I was the one that brought him in. And that was my mistake, bringing him in and putting him in charge because he was a disaster.
He wasn't ready to play.
I don't think
They
he was
didn't
actually a
trust him
disaster.
to pass.
He was the least
didn't
of our
know
problems.
The offense. He had 2 pass attempts in the middle of the second quarter in a game they're trailing. 2 pass attempts with those receivers. It's absolutely ridiculous. Tyreek Hill was screaming at McDaniel on the sideline, and part of that is the foundation of this offense is motion, pre-snap motion, and almost every time they do it now, they are penalized. They're sabotaging themselves with illegal motion penalties. It's ridiculous.
Lucy, I see in your face something that I have seen in Jessica's haunted face for a while now, being around us when we do Maximum Local Hour. You're looking at us wondering how it is that any of this can be surprising to us when we've lived it for 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, like, go to therapy. Get over it. This is.
We tried that.
Look, I don't mean to be
Generating.
disrespectful, but like, this has happened to you your entire life. I feel like if you haven't developed the coping skills by now, you just might not get them.
Yeah.
But it's the hope that kills you. Like
Well, shouldn't you know that by now?
But they weren't. Well, they actually haven't had much hope over the last 20 years. So they forgot what it was like to work yourself up into thinking that this team had a chance, which, based off of last year and how easily offense came to them, seemingly, and the fact that they locked in their quarterback long term and they have what the NFL players themselves deemed as the best player in the league, there was a lot of reason for hope. So they had a nice little groove there for like 7 years where nothing can break them. They developed a hard callus, but it's that hope that ended up killing them.
Look, when a man says he's changed, I can tell you right now, he hasn't. And that's the Dolphins. They have not changed. You're welcome for the advice.
I'm telling you, after Mason Rudolph's first drive,
Yeah.
he got to the bench and he kind of whipped his hair back and wiped off his head, and
Yep.
I started sweating.
Will Levis may have lost that job yesterday. Crazy, but he might have. I was happy for Tyler Huntley coming into the game. They did the whole story, his hometown team is so close to home. This is so great, a homecoming for him. And we did the same thing with Teddy Bridgewater like 2 years ago. And we keep having like these homecomings with like, yes, like finally this is like a dream come true. Like, and I'm happy for them it's a dream come true. This could have been a homecoming for Lamar Jackson. He was out there. You could have drafted him 30th overall. You could have got him like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But instead, no. Didn't do that.
Didn't want the MVP of the league. Again, I am going to say to you guys again, because I don't think it really landed. I'm watching a football game last night, and in the other football game, the Lions are going 19 for 19. It's the first team ever to be perfect passing the ball on offense. It wasn't even Goff who was 19 for 19. He was 18 for 18 and caught the other pass.
Yep.
And that is Man Campbell over there. Like, we've seen a generation or an era of...
That's a coach.
I know, we had
If
that.
you get that guy in your building, you don't let him go.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, there's that. But you guys are still not absorbing that I'm watching an NFL game last night. It's week 4. And I'm thinking to myself, Fowler and Reddick and Orlovsky, they're jealous of that other game. Like, they're getting mad at halftime of the shit that they're watching and where their careers have arrived.
I think they knew. Like, I think as soon as you saw that Buck was at the other game, like, you knew what you were in
They
for.
knew in advance they
Of
had the bad
course.
game. Yes.
Yes. They were told.
Yes.
What a dog matchup.
They know they have the bad game from among the two. I don't think that any of them came into the games thinking to themselves the way that Louis Riddick said during the broadcast, Mason Rudolph, if I'm Callahan, I'm saying, wait a minute, what do we have here? Like, that's a thing that was said during a 6-3 game. And I'm like, he's completed 2 14-yard passes over the middle for field goals. And they're raving about it as if, like, that flowers are blooming all over the field. I know what Mason Rudolph is. You don't have to tell me what do we have here. I know what we have here.
don't know.
Someone who for the rest of his career is going to be a backup.
He was 9 of 17 for 85 yards, but great hair. I mean,
Chris Fowler said it best with, we won't be sending this game tape to Canton.
Scott Van Pelt at halftime just turned to Jason Kelsey and is like, whatever that was, what he described it.
Whatever that was approximately $750 million your parent company just spent.
Stugotz, something that my wife and I have been doing here for a while, because you've heard me lament with great fear that I've been talking to climate scientists and doing a kind of research that makes me more afraid than I'd like to be about everything that's happening in the world, and just wondering, now that I have a wife to protect, something I've never had to think about before, which is how do I get out of here and where do I live in the event that there needs to be a very fast evacuation because of all the things that are happening in the world. Please play the music for me real quick before I transition back to football.
Die. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. The dolphin humped my father, and we're all wondering why. Let's turn on the news and find out how we're gonna die. Die. We're all gonna die.
One of the places I was looking, where could I drive quickly in a panic situation with 3 pets?
Right.
I was looking in Asheville, North Carolina. Is one of the places
Little safe house?
that I was looking. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what's happening in Asheville right now, but there are 33 people at least dead, and they're finding bodies in trees. And I don't know how horrifying that is happening, whether people are in trees, panicked for their lives and dying up there, or if they're dying elsewhere and then floating into trees.
That's about 2-ish hours from where I'm from. Boone was also hit really hard, which was about an hour away. I think what people are like failing to realize is when a hurricane like this hits Florida, there's an evacuation notice, and like there was one where they were like mandatory evacuation. I'm in the same sort of like news area, and there was nothing that was like, you need to get out. Like, we knew it was going to be a bad storm, but absolutely nothing that made anyone believe they needed to leave. They would be trapped there. And so all the roads and bridges, like I-40 literally collapsed within itself. So it's an island in the mountains because no one can get in or out because the bridges, the roads, they're all destroyed.
I don't think that if it doesn't hit close to home for you that people sort of understand what is happening all over the world on this front, Stugotz, because if anything like this were to happen to many of us, it would be the worst thing that had ever happened to any of us. I'm just talking about walking out of your house and seeing a body in a tree when no one warned you that there, because the new normal is that the forecasters don't actually know how to tell you what's going to flood and how.
Yeah, everybody's so grateful that a storm like this, a hurricane like this, doesn't hit them, but they're grateful at the expense of someone else. I've been to Asheville on vacation, a beautiful little artsy town, and to imagine it devastated like this is really numbing.
With no warning, though, is like the thing about hurricanes that has always felt at least mildly safe down here is that there's warning. People will tell you that something's coming and you can get away. But I find myself saying, like, think about the absurdity of that, Stugotz. I'm talking to my wife last year about where do we go? Where's the correct way to go that we can drive if you can get out of Miami with warning so that you have a place to live? And we read about stuff, and North Carolina was supposed to be one of the places that was at least a little bit safer. It's Maine. There's some places in Colorado, but there aren't many places that are supposed to be safe, and it tells me that there aren't any places that are safe. Billy, why are you making faces?
I mean, football. The Dolphins still have me.
Little doom and gloom.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
there's more places than just Colorado
Right.
and
Yeah.
Maine.
Mm-hmm.
There's 50 states.
I don't think
I got a room for
I
you.
think safety's an illusion. I think we're at a place where safety's an illusion.
Dude, and I said the Dolphins gave up on the team yesterday, and I was a gloomer.
Okay.
Do you go to safeplaces.com? I think that's what we were really struggling with. How you came up with this select group of places.
Diana, where's your safe house?
He researched. I mean, he talked to scientists. What are you guys talking about?
Asheville, not driving distance from here. That's what, like a 14, 16 hour
Yeah, it's
drive?
not close. Yeah, Orlando's supposed to be
the
one of
roads
the
are
safe
empty.
places. Yeah,
I
Orlando's
would
supposed
hit
to-
up Orlando on it's on the way.
Dianna Russini's on with us here. She's the senior NFL insider for The Athletic. Her podcast with Chase Daniel is Scoop City. I just read a lovely article about Scoop City that I don't know whether it's a delight or a surprise to her or not, but the article was basically, Dianna, about how your podcast is something that is luring women at a disproportionate rate. Did you read this story?
I did. Before we get into leaning into the small, tiny little success of my podcast, I think it's important to just like let you guys know I love coming on this show. I know we were just talking about a really serious topic, and I'm with you, Dan. I was listening to you closely, sort of just talk about the state of all of our safety. And in that moment, it just it reminded me. I know it's a basic, simple statement, but it's why I freaking love sports, and it's why I love this show. Because yeah, we got to talk about the real stuff in life, but it's why I stayed up late and watched that probably one of the worst NFL games I've ever witnessed. Just knowing that this doesn't matter. Football does not matter, but it's so cool that we get to talk about it. So I'm glad that you brought it up, but back to the Scoop City stuff. Women are listening, and I think that's really cool for the sport. I think you've listened to the podcast before. We definitely talk about real football. This isn't a light football show, but I think we approach it with a lightness. And I hope that's what some of the people that are tuning in are enjoying about what we're doing, because we're all over the big stories and we have intel, but I'm trying to have a conversation with Chase Daniel, my co-host, that is exactly the way it sounds when he FaceTimes me at 5 a.m. almost every day. But did you expect it? Did you expect, no. Did you have an idea that you would lure a demographic simply by being you? I don't know people. I don't know if people are tuning in because I'm on the show. I just think there's more female football fans. I think women are learning the sport at a faster rate. Even just guys, I'm sure you've seen it too, on TikTok and even Instagram on Reels. There's tons of women just explaining football fundamentals for women that are interested. And I love to look at the comments to see if there's just barbarians just making fun of these women, introducing the sport to those that have never really gotten to learn it over the years. And it's all these women in the comment section thanking these TikTok ladies that are out there teaching football. So look, I think it's an untapped market, and it's going to be a market that's going to continue to grow. And look, maybe Taylor Swift had a big influence on this. Maybe she sort of got a lot of the female audience to pay attention to it. And then while watching her, they were like, wait, this is actually really fun. This is a great sport. So I'm hoping to continue with it and share just some of the stories that I've had along the way as a woman covering football. But as you guys know, and we talk about on the show all the time, being married and having kids and having a life outside of my actual job, I hope that's some of the reason why women feel like they can relate.
You have a great husband, a patient husband. How does he feel about the 5 a.m. daily FaceTime call from Chase Daniel?
Yeah, not a fan.
Right?
Not a fan of those early morning calls, especially because we're getting the kids ready to go. But outside of Chase, I also have other conversations in the morning with people in the league, because that's always the best time to grab people. Like, I spoke with someone with the Dolphins early this morning, despite that awful performance, to just try to get an idea of what the hell happened. And you usually can get people driving in between 5 and 6 a.m. Eastern. I talked to somebody out in LA the other day. I think it was 3:30 their time, and they just answered like, "Hey, what's up?" I'm like, "What? Like, why are you up?" But we know how some people work, and especially coaches this time of year, they're working all around the clock. So yeah, I think I would like to cut down on the Chase phone calls, but it's probably really good for the show.
I think it's also interesting, Dianna, as you come in here, what I objected to that Billy said earlier in the show is that the Dolphins didn't look like they cared. And it is unsurprising to me in any way that Chase Daniel, a quarterback, would be so competitive and want to be good at something so much that he's probably the one who wants to do those 5 a.m. phone calls, because he's a crazy competitive quarterback. Doesn't mean you don't want to do them, but he wants to be good at this. He doesn't want it to be bad.
He's learning. Exactly. And look, how many people have we been around who aren't smart enough to go, let me tap into those who've done this? Like, I'm a woman in sports. Getting older stinks. But the thing that I love about it is the experience. So there's so many things, so many mistakes that I've made along the way covering the NFL that Chase likes to learn about and tap into, whether it's giving an opinion, giving a hot take, even just his cadence on a show with a lot of really opinionated, loud people, ways to just be a better listen. And I'm not saying I'm some expert. I've just been around so many good people, especially my years at ESPN, being around you guys, knowing what works and what I think fans and the audience wants to hear. So a lot of the conversation is definitely football. And I tap into his knowledge and his experience to help, even just to help me with phone calls I need to make. Like, hey, you should listen, you should call this person. Like, this should be interesting. They're definitely going to probably make a change there. I remember in my years, whatever it is. But a lot of it is really just trying to sharpen our skills to just be better at this, because it's hard.
Dianna, how's Chase's arm feeling? Because it's a little rough down here.
What's
right
he
now
doing
for the
Sunday
Dolphins.
around 1-ish, and can we get him to New England?
It's a great question. We have a Scoop City group chat, and it comes up a lot of, like, look, I don't want to lose Chase at all. I don't want to go back.
On.
I can't. Call Ryan Tannehill. Like, just go call him. He lives down there. He's in the Bahamas flying planes. Like, just tell him, give him the Jay Cutler deal, give him 10 mil, call it a day, and see if you can take advantage of an offense where you invested so much in the skill players. And we see a performance like we did last night, which I don't even really know what that was. In fact, the person I spoke with this morning, Miami, I asked that question as naive as that sounds, which is, what was that? What happened? Where did it go off the rails? And look, there's a lot of different reasons, but this is not the Miami team that we were ready to see this year. And I get the Tua element to this, but this has to be better. And another part to this, and I heard you guys talking about backup quarterbacks, because I've screamed and shouted about this as well for years, of, let's invest in the backup quarterback. How many times do we have to see it? How many times do we see the Vikings have success with Josh Dobbs, and the Cleveland Browns have success with Joe Flacco? Now the Colts are maybe taking advantage of Joe Flacco. I had a head coach say this to me, and he kind of put me in my place a bit on it, because his team was in need of a backup quarterback at some point. And he said, who do you think is out there? Like, I understand everybody wants these phenomenal, productive backup quarterbacks who could just step in and be elite. Let me know where they are, and I'll sign. Because there's not some island of backups just hanging out, able to run an offense. There's not that many good guys. There's not. And look, maybe the fact that you're even asking about Chase kind of tells you, it kind of emphasizes his point. Because you're right. Who else is out there right now? And I think Chase would probably be fine. I think he could do it. I just don't know if I don't know if he wants to. He loves the limelight, the red light of television right now.
I can't believe we're talking about this. Please, let's stop talking about the idea that Chase Daniel could fix anything that's happening with the Dolphins.
He had 9
right
career touchdown passes.
It makes sense. He's a year younger than Flacco.
Thank you. I need to stop talking about this. This is full blooming insanity, what is happening around here after watching those 4 quarters of football.
Yeah, and it was bad on the Miami side. It was horrendous on the Tennessee side. I mean, you look at that Tennessee roster, and it on paper, Tennessee versus Miami, like I kind of thought Tennessee would come out of there with the win. Not the way it looked, though. When you see Will Levis go down, I was waiting for a Dolphins player to pick him up, because they wanted to face Will Levis. They didn't want to see Mason Rudolph, because Mason Rudolph has proved he's able to step in. Will Levis obviously is not the answer for the Tennessee Titans, despite the fact that their head coach said that they're going to stick with him. We'll see if they stick with that. But the fact that there is no answer right now, and I don't know, I wonder about Tua. I wonder if seeing his team is desperate in need.
No, don't throw him back out there. No.
Is he going to push himself?
No.
Because he knows that he's the stir that's the straw that stirs the drink.
Stirs the drink. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Got it, found it.
What is going on with Sirianni and Jalen Hurts? Are they going to work this out, or?
Look, we everyone up to this point knows what's been going on there in the offseason, and even after last year, as they fell off that cliff, losing those 10 games. They worked on that relationship in the offseason. That was something that was a priority of just finding ways to connect. They're 2 very different people. And Kellen Moore has been, from what I was told, a little bit of a gift, because he has a really good way of connecting with Jalen, and he's in charge of this offense. But it just feels like the things that are important that a CEO should be doing, which is what Nick Sirianni is now, right? They had an option last year to move on from him. Howie Roseman decided to stick with him. Ownership decided to stick with him in hopes that he can oversee it because he's built some good things. Nick Sirianni is not a bad coach. It's just right now, this team looks like they're operating the way we all did during COVID. It was like, it's almost like they're all on remote. And they're not unified. And I think that's really where you're seeing the problems. They play their butts off in New Orleans, and they're not even able to use that as a way to find some momentum here. And they show up against Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, and they look like they had nothing, as if they hadn't played. I had a coach the other day text me. He's like, I'm going through a lot of this film this week, and this looks like the preseason. September looked like preseason football for a lot of teams.
When we get away from the gloom and look at the good stuff, what's better in the league right now than Jaden Daniels' instant impact and that incredible, so far, Washington offense?
This summer, Cliff Kingsbury came on Scoop City, and I asked one of those throwaway questions, and I know you guys have done them a million times, where you ask it because you just feel like you need to ask it, and I appreciated his answer. My question was, hey, you're not a head coach anymore. You're a play caller now. Like, what's that like for you? He's like, I love it. I don't want to do all of that. And so I do think that's been really important for Cliff's journey here is he can just focus on the offense. And we're seeing pretty extreme results with a super talented quarterback that a lot of people are now coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, we had him ranked number 1 overall. And I know we've talked about it on the show before that I've had conversations in the offseason right before the draft where I did find people that had Jaden ahead of Caleb. It doesn't mean that they're both, that one's better than the other. Right now, one is better than the other. But I still have tons of confidence in Caleb. But in terms of Cliff, the fact that he's found the perfect match, and we're seeing aspects of what he did with Kyler Murray in this offense, and we're seeing them just do the simple things, guys, which is give the player stuff they're good at, right? Whew, not that hard. But it is, because we've seen so many organizations try to force a type of offense and a structure to a player when Washington's going, okay, this guy can process information at a ridiculously high level, and he's comfortable doing this, this, and this. Let's pull it from LSU. Let's mix it with some of the stuff Cliff can do well. And voila, look at what we have. We have the greatest story in Washington since Robert Griffin III's rookie year.
Dianna, the Chiefs have lost Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, even though there's some ambiguity surrounding the knee injury, though it looks bad. Pacheco's out. That's a lot of explosive players that they're missing. What are their options via free agency and trade? Because I don't know too much about their cap situation. I know that they got some pretty big contracts on the books already.
Yeah, so they're definitely having conversations about making some moves before the trade deadline. We'll see if they'll actually do it. We've seen the last 2 years they made moves, right? We saw Kadarius Toney 2 years ago. Last year, Mecole Hardman returned from the Jets back to Kansas City. So they've been, we'll call it aggressive, right? And they went to the Super Bowl both years with making those trades and giving Patrick some help. But, over the summer when Mahomes and I were just reflecting on the success they had last year, he kept pointing to the defense being the reason why they won last year. And he's obviously right. And yet here we are again where they're 4-0 and it's the defense. And I remember him saying pretty emphatically that they know that they can't do it again. They can't have a three-peat just relying on the defense. The offense has to be better. It's also somebody that's the quarterback and takes pride in what they can be. So, look, I think they're going to do the work. I think the names you're hearing right now are all fair. I don't know if any of them are realistic at this moment, right? So you're hearing the Browns, Amari Cooper. The reason why that name comes up is because of
2 minutes for Chiefs talk.
I didn't do anything. You whispered Spags in my ear. You're not allowed to talk. You're whispering Spags. Yeah, you whispered Spags in my ear. You're not allowed to talk Chiefs. I'm sorry, Dianna.
What are the names? What are the names that you're hearing linked to Kansas City? What are the possible solutions?
I wish I missed that whole thing. My computer jumboed all this down, so I missed whatever Stugotz just did to distract me. So the names that are being we'll call it chatted about at this point, right? So I mentioned Amari Cooper because Amari Cooper's name came up during that Brandon Ayuk trade opportunity that the Browns were involved in with San Francisco, right? So Amari's contract also makes it really easy for him to move to Kansas City. I just don't know if Amari Cooper's the type of wide receiver right now that fits. I don't know if that answers anything. We're going to hear about the Devontae Adams all the way up to the trade deadline. We just are. He can tell us a million times they're not doing it. We can hear from the building that they're not doing it. But I think it's something that we got to keep an eye on. And then there's some out of the box type ideas that people have had of, George Pickens in Pittsburgh. He could step right into this offense. And I'm sure Steve Spagnuolo would love it. And Stugotz would be psyched too. So what is it about Spags that Stu loves so much?
Just that he got
has
a
his phone
nickname.
number.
He's got a nickname that is Spags.
Yeah.
Diana, I had an idea that I want to run by you that I was thinking about this weekend, and it's a result of Baker Mayfield kind of saying that he came in and that he was here to loosen things up and that people hated how serious Tom Brady was, and then Tom Brady came in and then got very defensive on the broadcast. I want all of the quarterbacks that Tom Brady is calling their games just to take little shots at him before the game and just make little comments to see how irritable we can get Tom Brady. Because he's proven everything to everyone, right? It shouldn't bother him what Baker Mayfield thinks about him, but for some reason it does. So I kind of want to see how far the current quarterbacks can push him with little comments.
Yeah. Here's the thing with that. Any person I've spoken to over the years or covered, or, you run into at Super Bowl parties and you had that conversation of the New England way during those successful seasons. The answer Tom Brady gave is the answer you get from everyone in New England. It's like, you want to know what fun is? Disney's fun. And the thing is, I get it. They're right. That is fun. Winning is fun. But I think there's also examples of where, you may be winning, but that journey isn't a great ride either. It feels good at the end, but getting there is painful. And I think a lot of players like Baker Mayfield, in their mind, think that they can still accomplish this at a high level, but also make this enjoyable and not have it be so hard. But I like that Tom was willing to do that, because the Brady we've seen on the broadcast just seemed a little too buttoned up for my taste. I actually think he's going to be really good. But I was pumped. I'm like, let's do this. Let's keep the petty going. More of it. I'm with you. I think every quarterback that we see for the next few weeks with Tom Brady, that quarterback should start the narrative during the week and have Tom give a rebuttal.
Have you done Disney with your kids yet?
No, I don't want to do it. I heard it's horrible.
It sucks. It's the worst. Disney's fun, but at a young age, not the best.
Yeah, exhausting.
So I didn't know this, and my really good friend Jeff Darlington was there last year, and I sent in this long text because I'd seen the pictures from his wife's Instagram that they were there, and I was like, "Hey, I'm just having a moment right now, just watching you with the kids. I got to do a better job with mine. I got to." Experience more stuff. They're not doing enough. He wrote back, "This has been the worst week of my life. Whatever you think is fun here is horrible. Don't do Disney. Don't ever come here. I don't care how many free passes you can get. Don't come here." So it was such a great little lesson for me in the moment of, hey, don't just look at the pictures. But Billy, can you just help me understand what is it about Disney that people say is so hard with kids? To me, I just feel like the joy in my kid's face would take over, and I wouldn't care so much about the other stuff. What is it?
Well, that's the thing, right? You're basically doing it just for the pictures the Darlingtons put up, right? So that when your kids are older, you can say, "See, we did love you. We did take you to Disney World." But while you're in it, did you like Disney going yourself ever or no?
So my parents waited until I was 11 to go. So I enjoyed it because I was a preteen. I understood. Is 11 preteen?
But did you ever do drinking around the world or anything like that?
Of course
you ever
it
go
is.
with your
Anything
friends?
before 13 is preteen.
Even 12?
I just felt like that was very much like trying to sound like I was advanced or something. I wasn't. It took me 15 years to get a bra anyway. Well, more like 20. But yeah, so I did Epcot with ESPN at the Pro Bowl. So it was a bunch of us, all of us covering Wendy Nix, the whole NFL Live crew, and they said, "Hey, why don't we do beers around the world? We have an easy day tomorrow. This will be great." And I said, "Yeah, I obviously." So we're going to all the different countries, and after the second beer, I just start feeling off. And I'm like, maybe that German beer just didn't sit well with me. And so Wendy sees me and she's like, you look green. And I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, you don't look good. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm hot. It wasn't hot. We had jackets on. So I'm just trying to suck it up though, because I want to be with the team. You know, we're doing this experience. It's fun. I don't want to miss it. It's Florida. So somebody has this idea of, let's take a photo. Let's take a picture, a big group picture. And you know that feeling when you know it's about to come up and you just need to get at it. You just need to get out of the situation. So I had my arms around, I think it was probably like Ryan Clark. I don't even know who it was, like whoever was working that week. And I just felt it come up. So there is a photo somewhere out there on someone's phone of me hurling, vomiting during this ESPN team picture.
On Wendy Nix.
And here's the worst part about this. And this just goes to show you I FOMO really bad. I didn't want to go home. And I got a text from somebody in Taylor Lewan's camp at the time and was like, hey, we have a extra pass for Universal Studios. So at the Pro Bowl, the players and their families, the park shuts down for them. So they get to just go on the rides a million times without the public. So if you can get a ticket to do that's like a once in a lifetime experience for someone like me. So I'm like, I don't care if I just threw up. I'll rebound. I'll do this. So I get there and I see Taylor and Will Compton. And at the time they were with the Titans and I covered them all the time. So it was just like fun to be around them and their wives. And they're like, you want to go on the Hulk with us? No, I was like, yeah, let's do it. I love roller coasters. I threw up 20 minutes before that. Well, what do you think happened? I went up on the Hulk. As we do 2 loop-de-loops, all over Taylor Lewan, all over Will Compton, everywhere. And to this day, like as much as I've covered them and done interviews with them, and I like to think I've grown since that moment, that I'm just the chick that puked on them.
Lucy, look at how disgusted. Lucy's about to throw up in her own hand because of what she just felt there.
Girl, that's your own fault. Why would you go on a roller coaster after you just threw up?
Right, that roller coaster. Yes.
I know. You think I would just be like, hey, I'll just hang, and just go walk around with you guys, not actually get on. There was something in my head that night. I just remember thinking, like, I can beat this. I can beat this stomach virus. I did not beat the stomach virus.
Dianna, send us that photo, please, so that we can, wherever that photo is of you green or you throwing up, please send it to us.
I got to tell you, it was one of the worst, like, 24 hours. And I was just dating my husband at the time. And I remember calling him when I got back and I was on the bathroom floor. And I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I meet another girl. Good luck.
She's the senior NFL insider for The Athletic. Gets so close to the games that she throws up on the players. I think that's a good slogan for Scoop City. Thank you, Dianna. Good seeing you.
Thanks, guys. Love you.
Greg Cody Tuesday rolls on here, and we're always very excited to have him on a Tuesday. But after the Dolphins put that effort up, even though Billy is questioning the effort, and I understand, man, when it looks that bad against that bad of a football team, I understand.
Just saying, if Lombardi was on the line, you know what I mean? Like that, that fourth quarter probably would have looked a little different.
Yeah.
They couldn't
You
do
disagree
anything.
with that?
They couldn't do anything against fourth down. Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard spent the whole game. They're a good run. They are a good run block team. And the idea that you guys are saying, this is quite the discovery to make, is it not, on Monday Night Television, where you guys are coming in and saying, man, they look small and finesse, and the announcers are saying they built this team all wrong. They built it from the outside in. You got to, in a violent physical sport, you got to build it from the inside out. You do understand that what we were watching last night, one of the reasons the anger is elevated is because what swept over the entire Dolphin fan base was, oh no, we've built it all wrong. Like, you understand that's what's happening, right? It's not just that it's, oh, they look terrible and they're 4 games in. It's, no, they built it all wrong. They need the savior to be the guy who's visiting the neurologist when you knew he'd be visiting the neurologist. Like, he's the most likely guy to be visiting the neurologist, and if you don't have him, oh my God, look at what Tyreek Hill looks like. Like, it's built all wrong. I don't believe that that's an overreaction to say that. No team can withstand injuries like this, okay? But for the last 2 seasons, their injuries have totally undone their seasons when Kansas City's injuries have not undone their seasons. Kansas City's got plenty of injuries and is still 4-0.
They have a different quarterback, and they have Spags. 2 minutes?
You're also not supposed to be made look incompetent by Mason Rudolph.
That's correct.
So sexy he looked last night.
Well, look, building from the inside out is a lot tougher when you spend what they spent on Tyreek Hill and are saving enough money to lavish Tua with a huge contract. And that's why they couldn't re-sign Christian Wilkins, and that's why they couldn't re-sign 2 offensive starting linemen. You know, that fundamentally they lost 3 huge pieces from their offensive and defensive lines because they couldn't afford them.
Talk me off of this, okay? Because I'm the one that's always saying, Stugotz, there's a hyperventilation and an overreaction to everything of the moment that happens in the NFL. But what I'm telling you is that what I'm watching last night, when you lose to that at home that way, every game in that league is close. When you lose that way to a terrible team and its backup quarterback, I come away with the seismic reaction of, this is flawed. Like, that couldn't win a playoff game when they had the window of, oh, they've got the quarterback cheap. When that couldn't win a playoff game, and it wasn't a piece away when they had value at quarterback, which is the best thing to have in the entire sport.
Well, it's more than just Tua, and it's more than just Tyreek as well, right? They also paid Jalen Waddle, and Jalen Waddle hasn't really done much of anything this season. So
and paid Jalen Ramsey, too.
It's how they spent the money that they spent. If the people that they've paid are not delivering, be it because of injury or be it because of just lack of production scheme, whatever you want to call it, the money's wasted at this point.
4 weeks of this gets everybody fired.
Yeah, but I'm telling you right now, mark my words right now. Mark your calendars. Mark whatever you got to mark.
Mm-hmm.
Big bounce back this week in New England. I'm telling you, Dolphins are going to put up like 30 points.
And why would that surprise anyone? Seriously, they're playing the Patriots. Like, you guys are giving up on the Dolphins. That's weird. They're 1-3 in a division where the leader is 3-1. The Jets are 2-2. The Patriots are an awful football team. Yeah. I'm not ready to give up on the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel yet. That's absurd.
You could have said that last night about the Titans. 0-3. This is like, you have your backup quarterback, but you're playing the Titans.
No, everybody knew they were going to lose that game yesterday.
The Patriots seems the same way. I don't know how you look differently at the Patriots and the Titans.
I will say again, 0-3 team with its backup quarterback beating you that way at home when you're in a desperate situation, like, that's alarming. It's not just a loss. It's not just this is the NFL. It swings from week to week. It's like, oh, no, that's not in any way competent. That's not a competent thing that's out there, because who they were playing, Stugotz, truly terrible, and it's their backup quarterback.
I wrote in my column, if you can't beat this team under these circumstances at home, who can you beat? I mean, there is that gloom right now with the franchise. Having said that, I do think there's a gross overreaction going on. And I think the worst of that overreaction is that, they're built all wrong. keep in mind, this is a team that was 9-3 last season. They have the most dynamic offense in the league. It seemed different. It seemed like their best team in 20 years, and then it all collapsed. That's what's debilitating. That's what's dispiriting right now, is that from that point, their last 8 games, something has changed with this team.
Getting pounded. I think there's plenty of reason for despair. They haven't led. We're not. This is not a small sample. They eked out an okay half against a terrible Jacksonville Jaguars team.
An 0-4 team.
Yeah, they haven't led all season. Like, we're a quarter of the way into your football season, and you haven't seen this offense.
You've played 3 home games.
Lead. I think there's plenty of reason for despair. I actually think you're probably being way too rational right now.
I have a stat here, if you guys would like it, that this is like room for hope. Like,
is it a stat of the day?
Possibly, yeah. Sure. Yeah, we can make it a stat of the day.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day.
Today's stat of the day is brought to you by Venmo.
All right, so everybody's freaking out about this situation, what's going to happen, doom and gloom, this and that, right? The Dolphins have never lost a football game the same week that the Jets and Vikings have played each other in London.
Not a great stat.
I feel better.
I don't feel like our sponsor got its money's worth there. Let me see if I can do this better. I'm going to try and do this better. Give me the stat of the day music again. I got a different stat of the day. You tell me whether this is any better or not.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day.
This stat of the day is brought to you by Venmo.
Stugotz just said, as I was setting it up, I like Billy's better. And I'm like, I haven't even gotten to mine yet, which I assume you will like better just because it embarrasses me. I would assume that this stat of the day is something that you will prefer over Billy's stinky stat of the day.
Okay, we'll see.
Lucy, did you feel like the segment that we did yesterday with the old-timey Mets players from the 1962 Mets, did you feel like that was cute?
I wasn't here for that.
Okay,
So I don't really feel any particular way. But if you want, I can say it was cute.
No, that's okay.
It was so cute. It was so cute.
No,
it was
so
fun.
adorable.
You were late yesterday.
Very mindful, very demure.
No. So anyway, I was so intent on that stat, on doing that bit for a month. We had, Greg, we had the
I loved it. It was so cute.
1962 Mets,
Sure.
a
Love
couple
that
of the
team.
surviving members.
Yeah.
We had them
Kranepool.
come on to toast. It was not Ed Kranepool, no. We had them on to toast the fact that they were no longer the worst team in baseball history,
okay.
that the White Sox were now the worst team in baseball history. Unfortunately, because I didn't pay attention to sports at all over the weekend and I had this bit lined up for a month, I didn't realize that the White Sox had ended up winning 5 of their last 6 games, and the stat was incorrect, that the Mets aren't actually off the hook here. The White Sox lost more games this season, 121, but they also won more games this season, which gives them a better winning percentage than the 1962 Mets.
They got hot at the right time.
Yes. I can't believe we got that wrong and no one fact-checked me, and we're sitting here champagne toasting with old Mets when we just got the stat wrong. They didn't. That's correct. We just talked to a couple of old guys who were still the biggest losers in the history of the sport.
I have some unfortunate news for you, Greg. We lost Ed Kranepool September 8th of this year.
Oh, man, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's a big
Boy,
fine.
that's just-
Yeah.
It just happened.
Just happened.
Oh,
Yeah.
my
Had we
gosh.
gotten to the segment sooner, maybe we could have talked
I
to Ed
apologize to
Kranepool.
Ed's family.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Here is another addendum, though, to why it is that what we did yesterday was that with the Mets was all wrong. technically, the Mets were never the worst team in the history of Major League Baseball to begin with, because the 1916 Philadelphia Athletics lost 117 times and 153 tries. That's a 23.5 winning percentage. That's worse than the Mets. And the 1899 Cleveland Spiders still officially hold the Major League record for both losses and winning percentage, with a record of 20 and 134, including a 27 game losing streak.
I have a segment if you guys would like to try it, if you want to get back to Dolphins. If not, we don't have to do it.
Well, Lucy wanted to say something about the stat of the day, I
have
think.
a stat. Can I do a stat of the day?
Wow, a third stat of the day.
Can I do
wow,
one?
amazing.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day.
I like Billy's.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day.
This stat of the day is brought to you by Venmo.
So there's this graphic going around on Twitter of the most obscure team that every college football team has played in their school's history. And in 1992, not 1892, in 1992, UCF played an exhibition game against Russia. Wow. Western Kentucky also played Russia that
Damn it,
year.
she wins.
Wow. The Hilltoppers.
I heard the Western Kentucky Russia one went well because they just had the Russian, like the Moscow football team, stay with the Western Kentucky players. Yeah. So they all just hung out, had a good time, and that they didn't speak the same language, except they spoke the same language of football.
How about that?
I feel that 1992 to Lucy is like 1899 to the rest of us. That she's thinking about sometime like, how did they play Russia? And I'm still at the Rat at the University of Miami in college while this is happening.
The Rat.
But like the other ones are like in 1903, Iowa State played the Omaha Light Guards. 1992 feels really recently to just randomly play an exhibition against Russia.
Who's Miami's oddest opponent?
Miami's oddest one was Havana University, I believe.
Fun.
Really?
I got a scouting report on the Russian football team. I heard they were especially good at rushing. Is that true?
I dig it. Hey, where's Jeremy?
He disappeared.
Really?
He disappeared as soon as UCF lost by 1 million points to Deion Sanders. Put these on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. If it happened in 1899, did it actually happen? And do you remember a college football game within the last 30 years played against Russia? Because I don't have any recollection of that, and it's when I was paying attention to football and college football in college.
Do you think the two poor Mets that we had on yesterday are confused? Like, should we check in with them? Yeah, I mean, we celebrated something we should not have celebrated. We drank champagne with them. They have to be confused. They were confused as to why they were on. I mean, they were confused by Zoom.
I know. I thought about that, too. Why didn't they correct you?
I know.
Anyway, one more note about that Russian football team. When they're forced to punt the ball, they refer to it as Putin the ball.
That's good. I like that, too. Yeah.
This was a good Moscow Bears football team. Oh, wow. They were when they faced UCF, they were the defending champion of the Russian National League of American Football. Wow. That's serious. That's better than the ACC at this point.
Mike Ryan, I could not tell when you were whispering there whether you were doing it in my ear or on air when you said that Stephen A. has found something.
I was trying to alert you and just your eyes to First Take right now. As Stephen A. has found his angle coming off of last night's Monday Night Football game. Stephen A. Smith says Tyreek Hill leaving Patrick Mahomes could go down as the biggest mistake ever.
Oh, wow. Not in sports, just ever?
Ever. I would have.
That covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, I would venture to say maybe artificial intelligence. Who knows? Time will tell on that one.
How about the mistake we made yesterday with the Mets?
That's up there. So, just to be clear, Tyreek Hill left Patrick Mahomes, and Kansas City did go on to win back-to-back Super Bowls, no doubt. Yeah. But Tyreek Hill left, got paid more money by leaving, and also was named the best player in the NFL by his peers.
Right. After almost catching an historic 2,000 yards worth of passes just last year.
That leads us right up to the game that I said I wanted to play with you guys if you want to play it. It's a little game we like to call What If.
Oh, yes.
Well, I tell me which game you like better. I suspect
like
it'll
What
be
If.
Billy's, Stugotz. You tell me.
It's Billy's.
I also have a stat of the day if you want. In 1904, the banana split was invented.
I'll hear you out in your game. Now, go ahead.
I just would like to explore with the group some nominations for what is the biggest mistake ever. Like if we were to take, but we'll play What If instead if you guys want to play What If. But if he's saying it's the biggest mistake ever, I do think we can have some fun wondering about what would you nominate as a first ballot Hall of Famer consensus. People would agree, yep, that was the biggest mistake ever.
Fully guaranteed contract for Deshaun Watson.
Wow.
It's a good one.
Well, if you want to do sports and not sports, I think that game could even be more fun if it's biggest ever in sports.
What's more important than sports?
I mean, trading Babe Ruth is viewed as something that is among
Miguel Cabrera.
It can now be Ohtani, letting Ohtani go in free agency. But Billy, let's play What If you want to play What If.
All right, so here's how What If works.
Chernobyl was bad.
We mentioned earlier that maybe the Dolphins could be in a position to make some trades here, and Tyreek Hill's name came up.
Right back to Kansas City.
Now, hold on. Now, look around the league. What could be a potential fit? What's that? Oh, Kansas City just had an injury to one of its most important, wide receiver, Rashee Rice. I wonder if that could be a fit. What if the Dolphins traded Tyreek Hill right back to Kansas City? Dan?
So what do we do with that? Just hypotheticals?
What if?
The
What
game
if?
is just,
Do the Dolphins get Rashee Rice, and then we get him when he comes back?
Well, now I say, what if the Dolphins, and then you could go in a number of directions. I'm not going to tell you how to answer, but you can go in a number of directions. You can talk about cap implications,
Right,
should
but
you know those off the top of your head, or you could talk about, well, what package would the Dolphins receive to trade Tyreek Hill back to Kansas City? And then there's another branch that you can go down, which is, well, hold on a second. Some people have said, and I don't know who, I think you were credited with this. Some people have said something looked off in Kansas City. Tyreek Hill comes back. Do things look back on?
The problem with this rotting tree of branches that you have is that because we don't have salary cap experts among us,
Don't go down that branch.
Right. If the Chiefs couldn't afford Tyreek Hill before, what makes you think they can afford him now that he's more
TV
expensive?
contracts, yeah.
Semantics. Just what if?
It's not
Yeah,
semantics.
no, it's semantics. And then whenever anyone asks you anything about like salary cap implications that you don't understand, just say, "Oh, the new TV deal," and then no one really knows what it is, and then it's like, "Yeah, that makes
But
sense."
what if you want the game to sound actually informed as opposed to just babbling hypotheticals on the air that you don't know anything about?
I just always say money's not real.
Boom.
You can't fight that.
What if the entire NFL said, I'm not picking up Tyreek's contract. He's 30 years old. He's stuck.
What if we print more money?
Wow. What if?
What if?
You get it.
I feel like the biggest mistake ever would be a better game, but that's also got a flaw in it in that somebody yells Chernobyl and now you can't have a lot of fun with it.
It's Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
I dyed my hair blonde. That was a big mistake.
Really?
Did not look very good.
Drunk Family Feud for me. The Chiefs have $4 million in cap space, and presently Tyreek Hill's cap hit is at $18.2 million.
But also,
so I'll keep crunching.
Money isn't real, and safety's an illusion. We've learned a lot today.
And it's early. It's early in the show, so it feels
What
good.
if?
Yes. Thank you, Billy. I appreciate the game. I don't think it's as good as the game that I'm playing just because the game you're playing is just sports radio since the beginning of time. It's just, hey, say
Tried and
things.
true.
Yeah, just
But honestly,
say.
biting that apple after God told you not to.
Yeah.
I mean, the writing was on the wall. It was literally, you can do anything you want except the one thing.
Forbidden fruit.
Garden of Eden.
Dan, the problem with you is you focus on whether or not it's actually going to happen. We're just asking you what if it happens.
What if it does?
That's the problem.
It's not our job to figure out how to make it happen. It's
Yes.
what if it does.
Yeah,
happen.
it's just hypotheticals, but you're playing hypotheticals and you're doing so with no information. That's problematic.
I literally told you to print more money.
Yeah,
it
thank
doesn't.
you.
I don't understand where the disconnect here
Exactly.
is.
Blimps filled with highly flammable gas.
if
completely
you
avoidable.
print more money, you still have the salary cap. You can print more money.
No.
It's not a problem.
You're not getting
It's not that the Chiefs can't go to the bank and actually afford Tyreek
you
Hill.
print more money
it's against
and then
the rules.
No, you print more money and then you give everybody the money and then everyone has more money to spend and then boom, you got Tyreek Hill.
Is this still what if?
What if we increase the salary cap? Ends up being what the game is, as opposed
TV
to
deal.
What's the biggest mistake ever? Is a better game. It's a better. It's more. It gets people thinking
But
a little
hold
bit
on,
more.
you were playing What If before, and you were playing it at home. You told us you've been playing games of What If with real estate. What if the world ends? This is where we're going to leave. So, like, you like What If. You just don't know you like it.
I like it with information, which turns out to also not be accurate.
And a good
given
song.
that there are.
I was thinking
This
about
is a
that,
good
by the
song.
way, to help you out on that. Denver, a mile high. Global warming, water rises. It's not going to rise a mile. Let's just say it rises 6 feet. You're good. What if?
Leaning so heavily into the multiverse.
You mentioned Stephen A. Mike Ryan, and I learned during the break, and Stugotz and I were giggling about this. Are you guys aware that at one point, Greg Cody, in order to have more gravitas as a writer, went to the Miami Herald and asked about changing his byline to Gregory P. Cody? Like he was thinking about adding an initial to his byline.
It comes with enormous expectations, that
It
name,
does, yeah.
if you're a writer.
Too
Yeah.
heavy.
Yes.
It was like a yoke on my shoulder. I went back to Greg. Nobody expects much from a Greg, honestly.
But tell us the story. Seriously, tell us the story about
I mean,
how
that is the story. I floated the idea. I was inspired by S.L. Price.
This is the new
And that kind of
and
thing. Once
Dan
again,
Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.
Baseball's all-time hits leader is now dead. And you can make an argument, and boy, did Pete Rose start a lot of those, that the hit king was finally kind of killed by baseball itself, which tortured him until the very end. Because a man can only seek forgiveness and tranquility and grace and peace and redemption for so long unsuccessfully before the unrest of his purgatory consumes him and his body and his spirit and even his legendary will is forced to give up. Such an immortal on the diamond, such a mortal off it. Baseball finally buries in its judgmental resting place's garden outside a singular rose. He was 83. The math on that means he spent about as much of his life fighting the sport he loved as playing it, as much time disgracing the field as gracing it. That's a shame. His and ours. We can litigate all the pros and cons of electing a degenerate gambler into a Hall of Fame until each and every one of us is buried right there next to him. But none of those words will change any of the facts about his performance on the field. He had more hits than anyone ever. That will probably live forever. But in the end, a history house for a sport that's all about numbers chose moralities over measurements, chose to forever judge this man instead of honoring him. The last we saw of him in documentary form was the sport still looking down its nose at him and denying his begging. It must have been so humiliating to get the whole of your identity from a single thing and have it rejected by the sacred lords who are most entrusted with honoring it. The only thing those judges ever did more successfully than Rose was judge him. And they think they did it most correctly, but they did it most wrongly, which is a pretty good working definition for sanctimony. What's the point of entrusting judges and arbiters with judgment if all they're going to do with it is abandon common sense to instead clutch with a death grip to rosary beads and the strict definition of a rule? Pete Rose may now rest in peace, but I really don't know how baseball does. We know that all professional sports leagues are full of greedy, hypocritical liars, but this sport fancies itself more sacred than most, even with its storied history of greed, drugs, cheating, and segregation. Pete Rose's crimes, personal addiction, and weakness. Being human, in other words, in a sport in which failing 7 out of every 10 times gets an assortment of others not nearly as good as Rose through its hallowed doors. It could not have been in any way good for Rose's health late in life, always desperately craving to be loved back by the game that spent the last half of his life rejecting and burying him long before his final resting spot. Haunted. He was a living ghost, hawking his signature for money at the seedy Las Vegas fringes of disgrace. He lied and he gambled. Those were his baseball sins. I sit next to a liar every day.
Hey.
I work for a gambling company. I will not judge a human the day after his death for being human. The entire sport is supposed to be about going home, but baseball barred the doors of its most hallowed home and locked one of its favorite sons outside forever until his body went cold as the rest of us. All they had to do at the very end was lift a single forgiving finger of grace. But instead, they'll have us believe that he's the only one here who should feel disgraced.
You could have just called him the Hit King. What happened?
Can I ask a question? I thought yesterday, like one of my initial thoughts.
What if?
And I wondered, oh, we're not going to do it, I guess.
All right.
So, it was an inside thought that I said outside here, and I was like, I don't think we should go there. And you guys are like, yeah, ask that question. It's fine.
Oh, now you're putting it on us.
Well, so like, if you're banned for life, and that ends, does the ban?
You're saying if life ends?
Yeah,
does
like,
the
are
ban?
you like?
Does
now,
a lifetime
Is
ban
he still banned?
Does a lifetime ban end when the life?
Put it on the
does?
poll at Le Batard Show. I think it's a good question. Does
Fair.
a lifetime ban end when the life does? Because you're not doing anything for Pete Rose now if you put him in the Hall of Fame. The whole point was for him to get to enjoy it after, having his identity. I shouldn't say having his identity because he broke the rule and what happened to him is a consequence of the rule. But also baseball is so obviously stiff that you could have forgiven that at some point before he died.
We actually had an unaired interview with Pete Rose not too long ago, and there was one bit that I dug through our archives for because we asked him, what happens if you pass away and Major League Baseball decides to maybe put you into the Hall of Fame posthumously? We asked him what his opinion would be on that, so I think it's fair on today of all days to have him speak for himself in this on this regard. In the future, several decades from now, let's say Major League Baseball then makes the decision after Pete Rose is long gone to enshrine him in Major League in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. How would you feel about that?
Well, that would, to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to go in the Hall of Fame because I think the Hall of Fame, okay, and don't get me wrong, the Hall of Fame is for two things. It's one for the player, and it's three things. His family. Okay, his fans, and his teammates and everything that was everybody who was associated.
That's more
with
than three.
It don't help me when I'm 6 feet under. How in the hell is that going to help anybody? I mean, I still go out today. I'll go out and try to sell the game of baseball, and I'm not even in the game of baseball. But you guys will agree, my name is synonymous with the game of baseball. I have all the records. And that's all baseball is statistics. It's all about statistics. All you guys on TV talk about how many home runs you got, how many RBIs you got, how many runs you got, how many Gold Gloves you win, how many MVPs you win, how many World Series you play in. Those are all questions that I can answer with no hesitation at all.
I want to get to Greg Cody's story about wanting to be Gregory P. Cody as a byline, and we will, because I know a lot of you are upset that we clipped him there, and he's also upset with the hard network out. But I do want to say of this, that to me, what the Hall of Fame actually is, that it does for players, that I think is the single most important thing that the Hall of Fame does. For these players who had to be so consumed with sport that maybe they didn't enjoy the climb up as much as they could or would have because there were always piranha around who were younger trying to steal their shit. It is a fountain of youth and old age that gets them to relive their glory in a way that is special, how the rest of us might not understand. The joy that I have seen from people who get to relive more nostalgically, more presently, and more joyously with the wisdom of old age. Yeah, I was pretty great. And man, it felt good. And I was too busy battering my body and traveling all over the place to stay ahead that 30 years later, what you're doing to honor them is giving them the most precious gift of here's some access to your youth you may have missed. And you've denied him that forever, and you can't get it back.
Yeah, he was robbed of that unnecessarily. He committed a baseball crime that should never have been a life sentence. I've always said that you shouldn't have to be perfect to get in the Hall of Fame, and if you weren't perfect, let them note that on your bronze plaque for eternity. Let them note that he had the gambling problem that ostracized him for years, but don't keep him out and let him die without that. The whole concept of rest in peace, if you believe in that, he ain't doing that today. He's tortured in rest and always will be.
I mean, but he's not an innocent victim. Like Pete Rose did this to Pete Rose, and Pete Rose in multiple conversations also lied about it, right?
Yep.
Like at first it wasn't, I didn't bet on baseball. And then it's like, I did bet on baseball, but I didn't bet on my team. But I did bet on my team, but I didn't bet against my. So like there never really was truth there, right? So like there's never really an honest conversation for the forgiveness with him because every opportunity he was given, legitimate or not, he lied about.
Given the crime, given the lies, should it have been a life sentence for the all-time greatest hits leader who never cheated on the field, never had a hit of steroid issues or any of that stuff?
I mean, that's the problem, right? Because he did break the cardinal rule of baseball, and whatever the penalty, whatever you think it should be, it shouldn't be keeping one of the all-time great players out of the Hall of Fame.
It doesn't have to be forever is all I'm saying.
Well, but it's also just an asterisk, right? Like, it's not real. Like, okay, he may not have a plaque with his face on it, but he will have things in the Hall of Fame. There's acknowledgement of Pete Rose. Like, people know who Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens are. And, like, we mentioned it and we touched on it on that interview that never aired, but, like, it kind of, and not to be like the whole Chris Cody, Zion Williamson thing, like, it kind of added to his aura not being allowed to the Hall of Fame.
It made him money as well.
It was, you could argue, it was good for him, right? Like,
making the Hall of Fame would have made him money as well.
Yeah, it might have, right? But like, how many people would know off the top of their head this is the hits leader and be interested in getting their autograph 50 years after they were inducted into the Hall of Fame?
I don't know the calculus on if he was allowed to stay managing around the game and still was able to have a career in and around baseball.
He gambled as a manager, which is another problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's the one who's determining the outcome of the games, and he's gambling on his own team.
I imagine during the meat of that ban, I know he showed up at Fox when briefly in their studio show, but I think a lifetime in and around the game, not being persona non grata, is probably worth more to him than being posted up at a sad Vegas casino.
He was starting to make a comeback, and you will see in the end of his life that he ended up off of Fox because there was stuff with women that was problematic, and so he wasn't going to make it back no matter what it is that the contrition was. But I want to ask you guys more generally how you feel about the idea of going an entire lifetime without forgiveness. I am generally pretty forgiving. I'm also a bleeding heart leftist because a lot of people in this country don't think we should be so forgiving about things. I want people forgiven because I'm pro-forgiveness. Doesn't mean I don't want them punished. Doesn't mean I don't want consequences. I just rarely want it to be consequences so stiff that forgiveness never comes. There will be no forgiveness. You've made the mistake, and that mistake is forever. You will not get to correct it. That's it. It's over for you. I'm just generally against that. Not always either, by the way. But in this particular case, even though it's the worst sin in baseball, in this particular case, I don't know if I want to say, you know what? Once somebody's limping around in their 80s, can we reconsider some stuff? Put together a committee. How about this?
You're applying age and optics, though. I mean,
put together a committee that allows people, just in general, once they reach their 80s, just put together a committee of forgiving people so that we can all consider whether a lifetime ban should be for a lifetime or whether we send someone off where they can actually rest in peace while they're still living because we haven't chased them around with a pitchfork in their 80s. What do you think of that idea?
It's an odd committee.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But
is that the Veterans Committee? Because there are committees that also said no, you can't get in.
Is this the worst idea ever?
Veterans of Forgiveness Committee is what it should be. No, the worst idea ever was Stugotz holding a napkin with the word Spags on it in the penalty box.
That's all I had.
I don't know where the camera is, pal.
The
camera's been in the same spot the whole time.
My apologies. That was the worst.
Playing to the monitor.
That was the worst mistake ever.
It can't be forgiven.
It was pretty bad.
If I put it in front of the committee, they would never forgive
that.
Color
balance issues.
Damn committee. I mean,
do you not know color balance issues when you try to hold up a white piece of paper and
written
you
in
just
pencil,
have thin ink, or what are you doing, pal?
What?
Major penalty, 5 minutes, swooning comedy.
It is a delayed penalty. It's very delayed. I don't know why you were wearing. You wrote Spags on a piece of paper, put it in your mouth, and looked at the wrong camera, tucked it in your hat, and nobody could see the word Spags on the piece of paper. Nobody knew what you were doing.
He was turning his head to look at a monitor that had already had his vision blocked from it because he put a piece of paper that said Spags inside of his house, also covering any hope of being able to read the word Spags.
Epically bad.
Greg Cody, you go to the Miami Herald and you're asking to be Gregory P. Cody, and what is the backstory of this? Is it before Stephen A. Smith is Stephen A. Smith?
Yeah, for sure. The Herald had a really great guy and a gifted writer named S.L. Price, all his friends knew him as Scott Price, but his byline was S.L. Price, which is very elegant, very author-like. It sounds more like a 20th century author, a novelist or something. And I thought that was pretty neat. And just on a whim, I went to my bosses and said, hey, Greg Cody wants to be Gregory P. Cody on his byline from now on with SL, an homage to S.L. Price. And it didn't fly, and with good reason. I mean, this wasn't super early in my career. I'd already been established. I was probably in my late 30s, early 40s, and the Herald just said, no, we can't change who people see you as and know you as at this point. Let's not do that. And they talked me out of it.
You were so powerless at the Miami Herald that you didn't have any control over how you were named?
I didn't want to get into a fight. I'm sure if I had wanted to really make an issue of it, I probably could have. Theoretically, I could have gone by a pseudonym. I could have been, Nellie, Wild Bill Cody. All of a sudden, that's my byline.
Nellie Wild Bill Cody, huh?
Well, yeah, Nellie, a woman.
He was going to do Nellie Doogie, and he got tripped up, and he just didn't know what he was doing, and so then he became Wild Bill Cody.
Wild Bill Cody, but I didn't want to do that. Could have been W.B. Cody in honor of Wild Bill. I didn't even think of that. But, so I'm just plain old Greg.
How old were you at this time?
I think I was like late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, that's too late.
Is it?
My step uncle, I don't know when your aunt gets remarried. I don't know the technical term. There's a lot of divorce in my family.
Stunkel.
Yeah, he changed his name randomly 3 years ago, and he was like, call me this now. And I was like, yeah, brother, you're 50. It's too late for that.
Really?
Yeah, you're John. You don't get to pick a new name now.
What did he pick?
He picked, I don't want to, JP. He's a really nice guy. But he was like, no, and here's the thing, is he didn't tell me hey, I go by JP now. My aunt was like, well, yeah, JP will be later. And I was like, who's that? She was like, JP? And I was like, that's why I asked who it is. John. So I feel like you can't change your name after a certain point because I try to be respectful and call him by what he wants to be called.
Right.
But I've always known you as a different name, and you just what at age 50 we're just never mind.
It is weird, but when it comes to a byline though, S.L. Price was always Scott Price to me because his friends called him Scott. You knew him as Scott, but S.L. was just his byline. So if I'm Gregory P. Cody in my byline, people I know are still going to call me Greg.
It does sound more impressive, though. I will grant you that a byline with an initial in it gives you put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. If you have an initial in your byline, do you seem more impressive than you are? Yes or no? Lucy, I don't know this about you. Everyone here, except Greg Cody, I think, gambles. Do you gamble? Do you enjoy gambling?
Not only do I do it, I'm pretty good at it.
Are you?
I'm pretty good at my college football bets. Normally, if I take the time and really just sit down and do it. So my routine usually last year was different because DraftKings wasn't legal in North Carolina than it is now. So I always bet when I get home. I used to when we would plan out our trips, I'd be like, ooh, gambling legal state, so I could use the DraftKings app, and I'd always do it at the airport.
The reason I asked the question...
I'd land the plane and be like, ah. But I bet very, very little so that I'm not I just kind of like to do it because it's fun. I'm not actually putting money that I can't afford to lose on it.
The reason that I ask you the question is because if you enjoy gambling, you will also enjoy somebody else's bad beat story. Not your bad beat story, although there are some bad beats so bad that you can even enjoy those. I've laughed sometimes at the way I get beaten on things. But tell me whether you find this Pete Rose story, I believe it's one of the greatest stories told on this show, especially because it's this person telling it. Tell me whether or not you find this bad beat story to be funny.
I had a horse 6 in front one night at Latonia, which is a track in Cincinnati, and a damn deer ran out of the woods and knocked my jockey off the horse.
That's hilarious.
That's the God's honest truth, guys. A deer ran out of the damn woods and knocked the horse jockey off the damn horse.
How much was your horse winning by?
He was 6.5 in front, going down the backside. Since then they put a wall up at the track now, so deers can't get on the track.
That ruled. Yeah, that's awesome.
That was a great story. By the way, can I make a quick correction? You said I never gamble. Speaking of horses, I do bet on my racehorse Calmly whenever she runs.
Is that right?
Yeah, every time.
Bona fides.
She won a Grade 2 race earlier this year.
Wow.
In France or Germany, I can't remember. But, I won like $80. She's never a huge long shot, but she's always a small long shot. So it's not like you're never going to get rich. But, yeah, I do gamble in that sense.
Greg, I thought of you recently because I saw the Kelseys bought into Team Valor, and they themselves have a racehorse now.
Why are you swigging your coffee when he's talking?
Because he just told a story, and he got to be the star of that story, and we talked about his initials, and he's just enjoying
Travis Kelce
himself.
and I are Team Valor stablemates, along with Guy Fieri.
Ooh.
Greg, if you could change your first name, but it can't be Greg or Gregory, what would you change it to?
Alphonse.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Would you go by Alf?
No, Alphonse.
Alfie?
Ooh, Alfie Cody.
Yeah.
That's a good dog name. Next dog, Alfie,
Alfie?
Cody. Yeah, Alfie Cody.
That's
Ever
cute.
since that movie, wasn't there a movie called Alfie?
Yeah, sure.
It's funny that you say that because I'm reading the Will Smith biography, and they allowed him and Jada Pinkett went and asked their son initially to choose the name for his brother, and they gave him permission, and he just shouted Luigi. And they're like, we can't do that, and they crushed the kid, but then they named the dog Luigi. So they had the exact pivot that you had, where they just said, name one of the pets that, and, left a broken-hearted kid with a brother with a different name, because Jada and Will weren't going to have a Luigi Smith running around in their family. Do you think that this Norm Macdonald bad beat story told on our show, nothing can rival the Pete Rose story, but this blackjack story from Norm Macdonald is pretty damn good.
One time I had a massive bet down. It was my last bet. I just said, I'll just bet all this. And then I got 2 aces. And and then I was like, I don't know if I have enough money, but can I get some credit, from the casino to bet on this other ace? And they're like, no. And I'm like, does anyone else want to buy an ace? No, but everyone else there was betting small.
You were at a $5 table.
No, I don't like the. What the hell? I'm watching the draft.
What? Norm, what?
I was just watching the draft.
Okay, all right.
So, anyways, my 2 aces, I go, hit me. I have 2, you know what I mean? So I have to hit. So I have an ace and an ace. It's a 2, so I hit it.
Oh, no.
Because you couldn't
Boom.
split it. Here come the face
12.
cards. Here come
Boom. 22.
Oh.
So as obviously I would have had 2 21s. Instead I have 1 22.
Just watching it like a draft. Were we on during a draft? Like,
No,
what
no,
was
it was
that?
an old draft.
He was doing comedy.
Yeah. We had him on during the football season at like 10:30 a.m.
Yeah.
There's no draft going on.
Yesterday was an exceptional baseball day. It was a lot of fun. The doubleheader between the Mets and the Braves had consequences. I imagine, Billy, that second game of the doubleheader, you were rooting against the Braves, right?
Oh, yeah, no. Oh, I mean, I wasn't watching the game, but I was rooting against the Braves, yeah.
Mad Dog was watching this live. We've got a lot of Mad Dog sound. I don't know how long it is, but let's just enjoy this vicariously through Mad Dog, who cares deeply about the Mets, as in the first game, Francisco Lindor, who's been great for them. He was so bad for them last season, and he's just carried them for 3/4 of the season this year. Let's listen to Mad Dog react to Francisco Lindor's home run.
And carried. Harris scaled the wall and
I'm gonna lie, I thought you were going. We have 3 home run calls. I didn't have the Lindor one up, so I'm gonna do the Lindor one right here.
now he's got an opportunity against the Braves back of the bullpen. Now he hits a fly ball that's pretty well hit the deep right center, and this ball is out of here. Lindor has just golfed one out, and the Mets lead 8-7. A 2-run homer by Lindor, and New York has the advantage. Oh my goodness, what a baseball game! As Lindor hit a ball out to right center, it looked like a fly ball at first, but the ball carried. Harris scaled the wall and it left it. And New York now leads 8-7. And Diaz gets a second life in the bottom of the 9th. Oh, my goodness.
I don't know if you're allowed to do play-by-play like that. Maybe you are when you're on Sirius XM and they have certain rights to certain games. What other sound do you have from that doubleheader and Mad Dog that would show his general enthusiasm for all baseball riches that were happening yesterday?
And did he just hit a home run? Is that Jesse? That is Nimmo. And he just hit the ball out of the ballpark in the upper deck and right. And the Mets now have a 6-3 lead. A 6-1 outburst in the top of the 8th eighth inning against Snellbar, Jimenez, and Iglesias. And the Mets now are in excellent shape to win this game. And now everybody in Arizona has become a Met fan for the rest of the day. Oh, my goodness.
Arizona got knocked out of the playoffs with that second game yesterday because of what Ozuna and the Braves did to save their season at the end. Give me a little more Mad Dog enthusiasm.
3-0 the whole game. Here's a 3-1 from Diaz. And there's a ball in the left field and pretty well hit. And it's off the wall. It gets by the left fielder. 1 run will score. 2 runs will score. And there's Atlanta Braves score another run. A 3-run double off the wall in left field by our good buddy Albies. And Atlanta leads 7-6 in an absolute classic now down in Atlanta. The Mets, who had a 6-run 8th inning, bring Diaz in, and Diaz gives it up. Back to back to back to back. And now all of a sudden the Mets, oh my goodness, how they bounce back in a Game 2 scenario will be fascinating. Iglesias now can close it as New York trails 7-6 as Albies just missed a grand slam out the deep left at a 3-1 pitch. And here comes Ozuna, 12 in front of the hour. We continue our Mad Dog Unleashed right after this.